Good day, everyone. Here's another video lesson discussion in AAPP. The topic I'm going to talk about in this video is writing a position paper. Writing a position paper. So here are the lesson objectives. At the end of the lessons, you will be able to distinguish among different kinds of arguments and appeals, classify statements containing appeals and arguments, and write various kinds of position papers. So before I proceed to the content of the topic, I would like to ask this question first. Why is it important to have a proper organization of ideas in presenting your stand in an issue? All right, thank you very much. So let's proceed now to the content of the topic. Writing a position paper. Writing the position paper can be quite easy if you focus on one step at a time. So writing a position paper is challenging since it demands your cognitive abilities and research skills. However, we can have easier time to write a position paper by following the necessary steps to produce this kind of paper. So here are the major steps in writing a position paper. Choose an issue for a topic. Collect information on the issue, identify the different positions on the issue, as well as the supports by the different sides. Organize your presentation. So let's start with step one, choosing an issue for a topic. Issues surround us. We see them in the problems that we have in society and perhaps even in our own experiences. So, in order to make good use of our own observations and experiences, consider the following questions. So, in choosing an issue for a position paper, you can find it from the present issues that we are currently facing or even your own experience. This means that choosing a topic requires a good observations of the things around us. So is there a particular problem in your community that you feel strongly about? If, for example, you've always felt great concern towards child beggars, this can be a possible issue for your position paper. So in choosing an issue, you can look for concerning problems within your community. Are you a member of a cause-oriented group? Such groups can also lead you to a possible issue as usually they are oriented towards a significant concern in society. So civic groups can submit a position paper that concerns the people that they represent. For example, environmental groups protest against projects that they think that can damage the environment. They can express their protest by submitting a position paper with signatures of the petitioners. Aside from using observations and personal experiences, we can also get issues by paying attention to the news and other media sources and school events such as campus debates, conferences, or lectures. So we can also look for issues from the news platforms such as news and current affairs shows, online articles, and conferences. So step two, collect information on the issue. Once you have chosen an issue to work on, the next step is to gather information on the issue can help you decide on your position or claim. If you do not have one yet, or if you already do, this step can help you strengthen your position. So if you have already chosen the issue that you want to discuss in your position paper, the next thing you have to consider is to gather related information about the issue. It is important to read references and resources in order to gain ideas on what to write in your paper. So you can also use the related information that you gather to substantiate or support your claims. This means that the related information can be used as supporting details. What is important is that you get information on both sides of the issue. Gather information that will give you a strong understanding of the issue, such as answers to basic reporter questions such as who, what, when, where, and why. So regardless of your stand or position, it's important that you also have to gather information related to the opposite standpoint. This is helpful to refute the possible arguments of the opposing party or to raise questions against them. Your position and, of course, that of the opposing camp may be supported through two major types of appeals. So, according to Aristotle, there are three main types of argument: the logos, ethos, and pathos. Logos refers to logic, which targets the cognitive aspects. The ethos refers to character or the credibility of the writer to talk about the issue. And the pathos, which targets the emotions or the affective aspects. So in this topic, we'll focus on logical appeals and emotional appeals. Logical appeals, this is the use of facts in order to support a position. It persuades the audience by targeting their thinking. So logical appeals refer to the sound reasoning of your arguments by stating facts that substantiate your claims. And we say emotional appeals, this is the use of the audience's feelings for the subject of the paper, such as anger, pity, and aversion in order to persuade. So emotional appeals refer to providing arguments that solicit the sympathy of the audience or the readers. So let's discuss first the logical appeals, the use of evidence and logical reasoning. In order to make our position paper convincing, it is important to be able to back up our claim with sound reasons or arguments and adequate support. So supporting evidence is very important in presenting your arguments. It is the factor that can solidify your claims, and the opposing party will find it hard to refute it since you presented facts in your arguments. And there are various types of arguments. So first is the argument from transitivity. This involves three terms associated through the process of classification. In this type argument, two classification statements serve as premises which then serve as the basis for the argument, presented in the form of a conclusion as in A is B, B is C, thus A is C. So argument from transitivity refers to the relatedness of your premises. Since the statements are associated to each other, thus the deductions are interconnected. So here's a visual representation of the argument from transitivity. So if A is B and B is C, then we can conclude that A is C. Okay, for example, as an antioxidant, coffee is an anti-cancer substance. So what are the three terms involved in the statement? What are the premises? What is the conclusion? So these are the three premises presented in the statement. A is coffee, B is antioxidant, and C is the anti-cancer substance. So based on the argument, we can argue that coffee is an antioxidant, then antioxidant is an anti-cancer substance. Therefore, we can say that coffee can be used as an anti-cancer substance. The three terms, of course, are antioxidant, anti-cancer substance, and coffee. They are linked together through the following statement. The three terms, of course, are antioxidant, anti-cancer substance, and coffee. They are linked together through the following statements that serve as premises. First, antioxidants are anti-cancer substance, coffee is an antioxidant, and the conclusion, therefore, coffee is an anti-cancer substance. Next is argument from incompatibility. This type of argument presents two contradictory choices, such that the choice of one means the exclusion of the other. Thus, if something is A, it cannot be B. If it is B, it cannot be A. For A and B cannot be combined, so they are incompatible. So argument from incompatibility is opposite from argument from transitivity. This argument means that the premises are not associated or interconnected. Thus, there's no connection between the two ideas. For example, President X cannot be pro-education as he claims to be. He reduced the education budget by half. So the example is based on two ideas, being pro-education and cutting the education budget. The argument works by saying that A is incompatible with B. Thus, a person who claims to be pro-education cannot reduce the education budget as it goes against the idea of being pro-education. So it's hard to claim something if your own actions contradict to your belief, stand, or position. So in order to check the soundness of your argument, consider whether the two choices or ideas are really incompatible. If they can be combined, for example, if it is logical for a person to claim to be pro-education and yet reduce the education budget, then the incompatibility argument is false. Next is argument of reciprocity. This argument says that individuals in situations that can be put together under the same category should be treated in the same way. Argument of reciprocity refers to if people or situations can be labeled in the same category. They should be treated in the same way. For example, a person who is born in the Philippines and who has Filipino parents is classified as a citizen of the Philippines. As a citizen, such a person enjoys privileges reserved only for a country's citizens, such as the right to vote and own property in the Philippines. Now, suppose a foreigner goes through certain legal processes and becomes classified as Filipino citizen. The reciprocity argument says this foreigner will now have the same privileges given to any other Filipino citizen. So, since the foreigner is already naturalized, then he can enjoy the benefits of being a Filipino since he is already legally labeled as a Filipino citizen. Though by blood, he is a foreigner, but on papers, he is already a Filipino. That's why he can now enjoy the privileges and benefits and rights of Filipino citizens according to the Philippine Constitution. Next is argument from comparison. This argues that two situations will have the same outcomes because of the similarities between these situations. So, two ideas, concepts, or situations can be treated with the same results or outcomes since both are similar or the same. So, this is the visual representation of argument from comparison. If entity X contains variables A, B, and C, then they result into variable D. Then entity Y will also result to variable D since it also contains variables A, B, and C. For example, the RH law will lead to the legalization of abortion in the Philippines. This was the case in Vietnam, which enacted a similar law many years ago. In the example above, the example above, two situations are being compared, that of the Philippines and that of Vietnam. The argument says that since the two countries both have something similar, the presence of a similar reproductive health law, then what happened in one will also happen in the other. So, based on this argument, the Philippines will follow the legalization of abortion after the creation of reproductive health law, since it has the same situation with Vietnam. When Vietnam enacted the same law with RH law, it resulted to legalization of abortion. And the argument is that since the Philippines also enacted RH law, there's a possibility that the Philippines will legalize abortion. But we will have Based on this argument, the Philippines will follow the legalization of abortion after the creation of reproductive health law, since it has the same situation with Vietnam. When Vietnam enacted the same law with RH law, it resulted to legalization of abortion. And the argument is that since the Philippines also enacted RH law, there's a possibility that the Philippines will legalize abortion. But we still have to be careful in presenting this kind of argument since we have to consider other variables if the RH law will truly result into legalization of abortion. So there are other factors that we need to consider in forming conclusions because most of the time an issue has so many layers and complex matters. The next is argument from generalization. In argument from generalization, we use one member of a population to make conclusions about the entire population. We encounter this argument all the time. So, argument from generalization refers to the idea that an entire population has the same qualities based on the characteristics or qualities of one member from that population. This type of argument will also result in stereotypes because you generalize the whole population when your data is only based on one person. So this is the visual representation of argument from generalization. Okay, for example, Manny Pacquiao is proof that the Philippines is a nation of good boxers. And based on the achievement of Manny Pacquiao, we concluded that many Filipinos are also good boxers just because Manny Pacquiao is a Filipino and he is a good boxer. And another example, the Philippines is a country of great singers because of singers who made news outside our country, such as Lea Salonga and Charis Pempenko before he became Jake Cyrus. So next, argument from examples. Argument from examples is similar to argument from generalization in that conclusions are made about an entire population. The difference is that instead of using only one as basis, in argument from examples, you use a group of examples, a sample from that population to serve as your basis. So in argument of examples, we generalize the characteristics or qualities of an entire population based only the samples or representatives from that population. The same thing when conducting research. When you study the perception, behavior, and other variables, you only conduct a survey to samples or representatives. By that, you can formulate generalization or conclusion. We see this type of argument whenever we encounter survey results. In surveys, a group of people are asked of their opinions or preferences, like their preferred candidate for a particular election. If done correctly, then the survey results may be a good indicator of how many Filipinos feel about a particular issue. So when you conduct a quantitative study, it's not convenient to survey all the members of the population of your target respondents. You just have to get the samples or representatives from them by using the correct sampling method. So by that, you can form conclusions and deductions based on the data that you have gathered from your samples. Next is argument from cause. An argument from cause posits that A is caused by B, which means that the preference of A or the cause will mean the preference of B, which is the effect. So argument from cause refers to a situation that is resulted from another situation. This means that the two premises imply cause and effect relationship. Next is argument from sign. This argument uses a sign of indicator X to argue for the existence of condition Y. For example, the president may argue that the Philippine economy is thriving because of increased GDP and foreign investments, which are economic indicators. Or we may say that we have fever because of our body temperature reads 400 Fahrenheit. So this means that the argument from sign implies an indication of a situation. This is common in conducting a quantitative study wherein when you measure the variables of your study, you need to measure their indicators. For example, when you want to determine the level of speech anxiety of your respondents, you have to measure the indicators of speech anxiety to know whether the level of speech of your respondents are either high, moderate, or low. So we're done with logical appeals, so let's proceed to the emotional appeals or the use of emotional triggers to move people. As what I have mentioned, emotional appeals are useful to solicit the emotions or sympathy of your audience or people. Hence, being able to use them effectively can be helpful to advance our arguments. But failure to use these appeals effectively can also result to bad arguments. So it depends on the issue if these appeals are necessary to use. So let's discuss first the bandwagon or join the crowd appeal. In this type of appeal, the writer uses people's tendency to conform with the majority, pointing out that his or her position enjoys support from many people. The idea here is to convince people to go with the flow. Everybody else is doing it, so you should follow too. Keep in mind, however, that just because a lot of people do something, that does not mean that it is the right thing to do. So this type of appeal is to believe, accept, or practice the beliefs of others just because the majority do it. This means that people who use this argument are conformist. They want to go with the flow because many people are doing it. This is common among students who take specific strand in senior high school because most of their friends are taking that strand. Next is appeal to common folk. In appeal to common folk, the persuasion is done by pointing out that a person is no different from ordinary people, or that a product of idea is something that ordinary people would purchase or support. We see this a lot in elections, as when a candidate states that, like the masses, he came from a poor family and experienced struggles in life. So, using this appeal implies that your main priority is to convince the common masses by pointing out their concerns. In this way, you can gain their sympathy. This is very common during election campaigns when candidates present their platforms that primarily address the concerns and problems of the common people, since large amount of votes will be coming from them. Next is false authority. a type of false reasoning in which a person speaks as expert on something on which he or she has no expertise, as when an actor claims that he or she proved the efficacy of a brand of medicine through laboratory tests, as if he or she were a pharmacist or chemist. So this type of argument inciting a person to claim something but that person is not an expert of the matter. This type of argument is the absent of ethos, which means the credibility of the source is questionable. This is very common in advertisements in which the businesses use celebrities as endorsers of their products in order to attract their market. So even though celebrities are not experts of the products they are endorsing, they have influence to the buying behavior of the consumers since people look up to them. Next is name calling or ad hominem. Ad hominem is when you personally attack your opponent or the opposing party instead of attacking the arguments. The purpose of this type of appeal is to discredit the credibility of your opponent. Sometimes it's beneficial, but there are times that it's also not good because the essence of the argument is being defeated. Next is association. This is done by creating a link between one thing or idea and another one that people have positive or negative feelings for. For example, certain food products may be associated with Filipino values such as strong family ties. So this appeal implies about two different ideas, but you're trying to establish a connection between them or what we call analogy. This is also common in advertisements when commercials show the connection of the product to our culture such as family values, desires, needs, and wants in order to attract consumers or influence their buying behavior. So let's proceed to the step 3 or organize the content. So let's start with introduction. So introduce the issue being debated by answering basic reporter questions. Who, what, when, where, and why about your chosen issue. Your goal is to provide the reader with the background of the issue under discussion. So in introduction, you have to discuss the background or the context of the issue. In this section, you have to set the tone of your position. State your claim on the issue. A good statement of claim or thesis should clearly indicate the writer's stand, and it should do so right at the onset. So, a good thesis clearly shows your position. It should not appear to be neutral or undecided. Consider the examples below. Which of them would you consider to have a clear position on the issue? So, in the introduction, you also have to provide your thesis statement. So, your thesis statement should clearly express your stand or position about the issue. Next is the body. Present the opposing viewpoint. You need to accurately represent what the opposing side is saying about the issue. In the interest of fairness, it's only right for you to allow the other side to speak. So the goal, however, of presenting opposing arguments is so that you can overcome or refute them by pointing out their flaws and weaknesses. Showing errors in the opposing side's reasoning, pointing out negative consequences of the opposing position, showing inadequacies of its evidence, and arguing that the values espoused by the opposing side do not agree with the values upheld by the readers. So, these principles in presenting your counter arguments can be helpful to establish the soundness of your arguments or that your reasoning is logical. Thus, an excellent presentation of the opposing viewpoint should be able to do the following: thoroughly cover all the arguments raised by the other side, adequately explain the support for those arguments, and convincingly show that the opposing side should not be believed. So this means that it's important to answer all the questions raised by the opposing side. If you cannot answer properly the concerns of the opposing side, then there's a problem with your position or there are loopholes or flaws in your arguments. Next is present your arguments and make them convincing by providing adequate support. To come up with an excellent presentation of your viewpoint, then you can do the following. Clearly state the reasons for your claim, adequately support your reasons, use both logical and emotional appeals, employ a variety of supports to make your case both convincing and interesting, and do not forget to cite sources and properly document them, as this adds to the credibility of your paper. So this means that it's important that when you present your arguments, provide supporting evidence in the form of facts in order to solidify or substantiate your claims. And do not forget to provide proper citations and have a reference list in order to show that your resources are credible. Alternatively, you may also present the body arguments in the order below. So present your position, summarize the opposing viewpoint, point out the weaknesses of the opposing viewpoint, and conclude by summarizing your arguments and reiterating your position. For conclusion, you just have to restate your thesis statement in different structure. So you can rephrase it or restructure it. And also add a final or closing statement that implies a strong impression by pointing out the urgency of your position. A very helpful organizational tool is the writing outline. Outline the contents of your position paper before you actually sit down and draft it. This ensures that you cover all the points that you want to include and that you do so using the proper order. So still the best way to organize the structure and content of your position paper is to write an outline first before writing the whole position paper. And that's the end of the discussion, and I hope that you have learned something, and see you on the next video.